Welcome to the award-winning Tough Girl podcast, now celebrating 10 years. I'm Sarah Williams, and every week I bring you stories from women in the world of adventure and physical challenge. Get inspired, stay motivated, and be part of a movement that's increasing the visibility of female role models, especially in relation to adventure and endurance. New episodes every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time. Support the mission at patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast and dive deeper at toughgirlchallenges.com.
Hi, I am Tania Carmona. I am an ultrarunner, a coach, and podcast host as well. And I am based in Dubai, but I am from Mexico. And I used to live in Glasgow in Scotland before that, so before moving to Dubai. So yeah, I'm all over the world.
I'd love to take you back to Mexico. Tell us about growing up in Mexico. Were you running outdoors? Were you sporty? Did you have siblings? What were your early years like?
Yes. Well, I am coming from a small family as my brother, me, and my parents. We lived in Mexico City, which is a super amazing city, lively, happy, great weather all year long. And I wasn't in the running when I was little. I was more into swimming. And just because probably my mom and my dad, they were like, wasn't you're a kid and you have a lot of energy. And they're like, you know what, we need to, do something with this kid to go and burn energy and they just calm down when they come home. So they signed me up for swimming classes. And it turned out that I was actually good. So since I was 4, I started swimming. And like I said, it just became, what I did after school. And it turned out that I was pretty good. And I did that swimming until I was 15-ish. And I was a national swimmer by then. So I retired, let's say, when I was 15, when I went to my first national competition, because I realized after that it was getting very competitive. And I think that's something that kind of spoiled it for me. It was very stressful. So I decided that I didn't want to live like that. And I was aware of it already. And I've been doing that for, I don't know, since I was 4, like 10 years. And yeah, that's kind of spooked me out of the sport. I said, I just want to get to a national because that was a dream. And I did. And that's it. That was literally the last time I swam in my life.
How did you feel the void was after you'd sort of finished swimming, especially at that age? You'd spent from age 4 to 15 doing, high levels swimming in the national, etc. Then suddenly it's all over. What consumed your life then? What were you doing with your spare time?
Yeah, by then I went into, I think it was college. Well, not college. It was, I don't know how you guys call it. Here is like high school, sort of like before college. So what I think I was getting into college, I just went to school and just kind of did the things that I never did when I was a kid. Because I never felt I missed it, but I realized I missed a lot of things, like maybe going to the movies with friends. Like that has never, like I never did that when I was a kid. And not that I missed it because I didn't know it even, it was a thing. I was just like after school, I would go swimming and that's it. And usually the weekends I was again training or I was in a swim meet and in a competition, which usually they were far away. So you had to, go the weekend and travel and all that. So it just opened a life like I never had that kind of experience of going with friends to the movies, or by that time I was able to go to parties and things like that. So I definitely, dive into doing nothing and just enjoying, the life. And I was doing here and there, trying to find another sport, but I was, nothing really stick. And that was sort of like let's say my adolescent teenage years.
So when did you discover running? How did that happen?
Yeah, so after a couple of years that not doing nothing, I moved to Chicago to do my master's degree. And, Chicago, obviously, Chicago Marathon is a vibe. Like, it's a thing, right? Everyone has to do it. So I moved there to study. And the first year, I seen the first my first marathon, like in real time. Like I was there when that happened. And I was like, oh my God, that is amazing. Like that is so cool. The energy, like everyone cheering. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get ready and do it next year. So that's what I did. I started running with a group. I remember by that time it was just, a free group that they would get together 3 times a week, 2 times during the week, and then just do one long weekend run. There was no strengthening, there was no nothing. It was just 3 days of running. So obviously that became very painful as the time passed, because that's all I was doing, just running 3 times a week. And the day of the marathon arrived and I did the marathon. I did it, I think, seriously, like in 6 hours. I was in so much pain, crying the last, I would say, 5-10 kilometers. And I was like, this is not fun. And I never ran again.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important to also share the realities that running can sometimes be painful. It shouldn't be, but sometimes, there is pain, there is tears.
Yeah. And then obviously now you look back and you're like, oh, it's because I did so many mistakes. But back in the day, I mean, I'm going to sound super old, but there was not such a thing as like the internet was not massive, or, it was not, there was not so much information as there is now. So you think that you just joined this group of runners, which was free, by the way. And, in that time, I don't know if you remember, but it was all about volume and miles. And, it was, as long as you cover the miles, you were supposed to be okay. There was no like strength training or cross training. That was not a thing at all back in the day.
How old were you then?
So I would say I was probably 20. Yeah, because then I ran the marathon and I never ran again for like 4 years. I was like, that is not a sport for me. That's not happening ever again. So I finished my master's in Chicago. I never ran back in Chicago. It was done. And I was like, I'm not doing this ever. So I came back home to Mexico and I realized like I lost a lot of connections and friendships and all that. And there was like this running group that will pass just in front of my street, of my house. I will look at them through the window and I was like, oh, I need to make an effort to meet new friends, or, I'm kind of back to square zero because I've been away for so long. So I just kind of decided to join in, even though I hated running. Obviously, I remember I was like scarred from that horrible marathon experience. But they just ran all around the block. So I thought, you know what, it's just a good way to make friends and, why not? So I joined in. I remember I couldn't run even a block, obviously, and the block is like 3 kilometers. It was like a mile and a half. I couldn't even do that. And I was like, oh dear, this was a mistake. But you know what? I met great people, and one thing led to another, and they used to sign up for races together, as friends and all that. And at that time, Spartan race came to Mexico. So I don't know if you know the obstacle racing arrived to Mexico. So it's super trendy and everyone was trying it, obviously. So the group of runners were like, oh, we should get ready to do the Spartan race. So we're like, why not, right? I mean, that would be easy. Well, in my head, I thought it would be, a little bit more friendly to run a little bit. Then you stop, kind of do the obstacle and then continue running. So I thought at least it's not like continuous running. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. So I signed up for the Spartan race here in Mexico, and it was in a trail. Usually Spartan races are in trails. So I go there, I do the race, and then I realized I really like the running part, just the parts that were like running in the trails. So I just thought that I really enjoy the running there. Maybe it was the street that I didn't like. So I was like, is there such a thing as just a race to run in the trails? Like, is just without the obstacles, just run in the trails? And yeah, I just start looking in that time was Facebook. And there was a 50K close by. And I thought, well, I've done a marathon. I mean, yeah, 4 years ago and almost killed me, but I survived it. So I thought, I could do a 50K. So I signed up. The race was in 6 months. I hired some coaches that I owned them everything. I think that was the key point that point, these coaches taught me that you needed to be strong. So not much about the miles. So they had in that time, back in that day, that was like a different way of thinking. Now it's more normal, but 10, 15 years ago, it was not such a thing. But these coaches knew that the base was strengthening and cross training, and you could finish the race even though you didn't do a lot of miles. So it kind of made sense to me. I started training with them, and in 6 months, I ran my first 50K.
I love this. So, because that was, on your website, that's for you was when it all really began in
Yeah.
2016, doing this Spartan race. And then, then obviously you start working with coaches, you sign up for your 50K. And I love the fact that you discovered, you did like the road racing and stuff, and then, the obstacles. And then you're like, actually, it's that bit in between. It's that trail running aspect. That's the bit that brings you that joy and happiness, because it started your journey to become a personal trainer and endurance athlete.
Yes.
And what were you doing at this point? So, you mentioned you've been to Chicago, you've got your master's. What was sort of your background in before you sort of made the career change over, or were you in this field already?
Well, I was in business management, so I was managing just a couple of businesses, family business. So I was just coming back from, like I was saying, in Chicago. So I was not working yet. I was kind of like in between, just trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life and all that. So I was in that kind of between. That's why I was home with my parents back home, and I was training and doing that. And in that meantime, I met my husband, Andy, which is a Scottish man here who was traveling through Mexico. I met him here, and that's how I ended up in Scotland after a couple of years after.
So how did you meet Andy? Was there like a meet cute story?
Yeah, he was traveling through Mexico, and yeah, we met. I was here, obviously, and yeah, we just clicked, and we never been apart from then on. And he went. Obviously, he was living in Scotland at the time. He was just traveling through Mexico and South America and all that, and so I lived kind of traveling back and forth to Scotland for like around 3-4 years until I said, you know what, this is getting very expensive. I cannot find a job because I have to be traveling back and forth. So you have to make a decision. And yeah, he had to make a decision to that. Yes, I want to live with you. Let's move together. And that's how I ended up moving to Scotland. And that was when I was just running for like a year here in Mexico. So he met me when I just started running. He met me actually. He went to the first race, that Spartan race that I was telling you about. He actually went to that race as a spectator. We were just dating. He just met me then.
What a culture shock going from Mexico City with your gorgeous, like I'm just thinking of the gorgeous sunshine, perfect weather.
To be honest, I didn't know. I just moved because I wanted to be with him. You're like stupid in love, and you're like, yeah, sure, why not? I didn't even know where Glasgow was. I didn't know anything about Scotland, and yeah, it was a shock when I then moved 3 years after meeting him, and that's really when I start running like properly. And in that meantime, that's when I started studying. So when I moved to Scotland, I started properly training for ultras. Like before, I think it was more like a hobby, like like a fun thing to do. Until when you do, I think 50, 60, even 80, like a 50 miler, you could keep your life pretty normal. You don't need to do much change as a normal, let's say, a marathon training. Like you can still, live a little. And then when I moved to Scotland, I decided to jump into a little bit longer, harder races. And that just came naturally. And then you start shifting your lifestyle, even, if I was, I don't know, if we used to go out drinking before in the weekends, you suddenly stop drinking and you start, prioritizing the running. And that's when everything started like really turning a little bit more into, oh, you know what? And then people obviously noticing, or people getting, more women, like, oh, because there's not a lot of women in ultra running and more in Scotland. It's a small community, and obviously women is less, and so probably they start noticing, they start seeing, so obviously they start questioning and asking. And I never wanted to give an answer that from like a stupid answer, so I always wanted to research and give them like my best answer. And that's sort of how I just led to coaching. And I thought, you know what, I should do this for real, because by then I was running already like 2, 3 years, which is not much, but I was already doing a lot of research and a lot of studying just for my own personal journey. So yeah, I decided to then swap when I moved there.
Let's talk about the 5 Deserts Grand Slam. When did that become a dream? When did you sort of sit down and, did you discuss with Andy and sort of say, this is my goal, this is what I want to be going to be doing? Was there a moment where it all clicked for you, where you thought, actually, this is going to be my challenge, this is what I'm going to take on, this is what I'm going to work towards? How did that journey begin?
It's funny, actually, it just popped on my Facebook today that 9 years ago, I shared a Runner's World article about Marathon des Sables. And I remember I shared that post saying, oh, what a dream. I would love to do that, something like that. And it just popped up this morning. You know how it says memories from
Yeah.
9 years ago? And it's funny, like I'm looking at it now, 9 years later, like that just happened. Maybe maybe that was the moment that the seed was planted. 9 years ago, I was just starting to run. And for me, running that was an absolute, I was ignoring these people, like, how do they do this? I would never be able to do that. But 10 years later, here we are doing not only one, but 5 of them in a year. And it just came about because I wanted to do Cocodona 250. And I thought, you know what, I need to train sort of like day after day efforts, a couple of them, just because that's, what a 250 is, just very long day after day efforts. And I think a stage race would give me that, that kind of practice. And I started Googling, stage races, and it just appeared Racing the Planet. And I started reading, and they had these several, series of races. And I started even reading a little bit more, and there's like this thing called the Grand Slam Plus. And I started reading even more, and there's no other Mexican or Latin athlete that have done it before. So I thought, you know what, let's do it. And in the way there, we will get ready for Cocodona anyways. It will be a training, and and we can do that as training and do something cool and leave that legacy there for many people to come. So yeah, that's how it came about. And yeah.
So it's 5 250-kilometer ultra marathons that you're doing in a single year. Do you want to talk through the 5 different races and where they are? Because they are in really extreme places, aren't they?
Yeah, and they are self-supported, which that was a game changer for me. It was totally different. And that came with why did I wanted to do the 250 Cocodona, or how did everything started kind of escalating, was because I have, since 5 years ago, I have this kind of challenge with myself that I would do something every year that is a little bit bigger, harder, or more challenging than last year. So, everything started with my first 100 miler, and then let's do this series of 5 50 milers in 6 months. And, every year I kind of been looking to do something for me that's a little bit more challenging and more difficult. So again, I looked when I decided to do this once, I was like, well, 5 250, that's definitely challenging and self-supported. That's going to definitely teach me. That's way out of my comfort zone, because that itself, later on, I discovered that is a totally different sport altogether. So they are self-supported, 250 kilometer. It's divided in 6 stages. And the first 4 days, it's a marathon stage around there, 40 to 45 kilometers. And then day 5, they hit you with a double marathon. So it's a 50 miler, 80 kilometers. And the last day is usually a short 10 or 5K, depending how much left is in the route. And the places, or the other thing that I loved, it was like, I'm going to be traveling to all these amazing places and extreme deserts. The first one was Namibia, and that was the first encounter with the experience. You know, it was my first time camping, my first time, I don't know, walking in sand dunes. I mean, I've been living in Scotland, remember? I don't have any idea of heat that hot in my life. It was like 54 degrees, and it was just my first time of a lot of things, even like I said, camping, you know, and eating those dehydrated meals and figuring out all that self-supported, which I think at the beginning, it was, I think if people see it like that, if you see a challenge and you say like, because I got overwhelmed when I signed up as well, like, oh my God, I have to organize all the logistics, the traveling, and how am I going to do self-supported? I don't know nothing about this. You know, you get a little bit scared, but I realized that you have to just solve the first problem, you know, like the thing that you have in front of you. And that's how I did the 5 deserts. And the first one, like I said, Namibia was definitely the first like hit in the face. Like, okay, this is a little bit different than where we're used to. So figuring it out, it was quite interesting. The second desert was Gobi Desert in Mongolia. And that was a little bit different. That was a little bit more trails and a little bit more hard pack, you know, terrain. It was very like Scotland actually. And that in that race I did very well because I remembered it just made me feel like I was in the Scottish trails. And after that we went to Jordan. Jordan was beautiful. Again, we were back to the heat, back to the sand, a little bit better prepared this time. I did a mistake in my gear in that one, so that was a little bit painful. I ran with really old shoes because I forgot that you need to change the shoes, right? So that was very painful and horrible. Lesson learned as well. I mean, you are still learning. And after that, we went to Antarctica. That was magical, so unique. I mean, how many people can say they've run in Antarctica? And it was just beautiful to spend 5 days there and seeing all the animals. That was not self-supported, clearly, because we would not survive in there. But we had an expedition board that we will leave there and then we'll go into shore, different areas of Antarctica, run the distance, well, run the time. In that race in particular, is run by time. So they put you in a loop and then you run there 10, 12 hours, 8 hours a day. And then you'll be clicking the distance and you finish the race until you click your 250, which is usually 6 day at this day 6. And lastly, I did Atacama in Chile, which is ended up being one of my absolute favorite ones. The scenery is so different from all of them. Again, a little bit of sand, well, a lot of sand, but these like crazy looking rocks that were so unique. And again, heat and salt plains that could turn your feet and your trainers to dust. So that was very difficult terrain. And that was it. 5 deserts and in 12 months. And it was, yeah, it was an experience.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, two of the words that you said there was initially, you know, making this commitment and then you felt like overwhelmed and
Yeah.
almost scared because it is a massive undertaking, especially, you know, from the logistics point of view. I think that's a very common feeling to feel overwhelmed, scared, you know, along with excited, looking forward to it. But it, you know, those feelings, like, how did you overcome them? How did you manage them? Like, what did you do to reduce those feelings, to manage that overwhelm? Did you have any specific like tips and tricks that you used to do that?
I think what I've learned to do is just to attack the, you know, the first step first, you know, first, like, let's not look like when I was planning, let's say the first one, which was the most challenging one, because I've never done this before. So, it gets a little bit easier the second, the third, because you know what to pack, you know how to use this, but the first one was very challenging. And then you're like, oh my God, this is the first one of 5 and I have all this to go. But I think the most important part is just to kind of like be aware that obviously it's there, but don't look that ahead. Don't look that far ahead. Just look in front of like, okay, what do I have to do? Well, the first thing I have to do is maybe book the flights. Okay. And look and do all that logistic first. Like, when do I have to arrive? Because that is a big part of it as well. Like, you need to arrive, you need to look for a hotel for the 2-3 days before you arrive, the 2-3 days before after you arrive or finish the race. All the logistics, they have to be done. Visas, if you need to sort a visa and all that. So just work in like order of priorities and just start solving one by one. And then after that, I started reading and watching blogs or even asking people. I remember I messaged a lot of people, like sent them DMs. There was another Mexican lady that I've done 4 of them. So immediately sent her a message and say, hey, and there was another Mexican guy that I've done a couple of them as well. Not the 5, but just a couple of them. So I remember I got into a phone call with him and they were so helpful. People will always want to help, always. And with that, they would give me, a lot of insights or what I need to, for example, pack or what, gear of equipment was better or, and then try them because obviously you have to try them. Maybe that worked for them, but maybe not for you. And get all the tips and tricks. So yeah, definitely the community and more in trail running and ultra running is wonderful. So use that community because they will always help you. So don't feel overwhelmed. I mean, it's normal, but just solve one by one, like solve the first problem that you have in front of you without getting, too much ahead.
This is sounding like a full-time job to manage this. What was your training like throughout this period? Were you working with a coach? Were you working as a coach, or did you have another job, or were you able to just dedicate this year to running these 5 250-kilometer ultra marathons?
Yeah. So before I started, I had a little bit of savings from when I was working in Glasgow. And as a coach, as a trainer, I had a boot camp. I was just running boot camps in Scotland as well. So I had a little bit of savings there. And when I decided to take that year, obviously I had to leave a lot of my clients because I didn't have the time to do it this year. I kept a couple of them that were like, they've been with me for like 6 years and they know what they are doing, but I didn't receive any new clients this year, for example. So I was able to, dedicate myself to this challenge because it's a full-time job, literally, without like planning. Takes days to plan, days to pack or figure it out, plus the training. I work with a coach. I have a coach, but I do have a coach, and that gives me a little bit of more peace of mind because you are very subjective in your own feelings and your own numbers. So I like to delegate that. So I have my coach, and she's amazing. And we worked together before, well, we still work together, but we worked more into training before the first race. So we worked, I would say, like 6 to 4 months before the first race started, because we knew that once the first race started, it was game over. Like I wasn't going to be able to train after. When the race finishes, it's all about now recovery, resting, and get ready for the next one. So there was no going to be, I haven't been training for a year now. My training my runs were just the races and a little bit of runs, in between, and recovery runs, a lot of recovery runs, a lot of spare time and resting because, it takes a lot for your body to recover after a 250-kilometer extreme desert effort.
I mean, actually, I'd love to dig into the recovery a little bit more because obviously, you're putting your body through a huge amount of stress, and especially also being in some of the environments that you are, whether it's the cold of Antarctica or whether, the Atacama Desert, which is super, super dry, or it's sandy or it's heat. Talk us through in detail what you would do. Did you have specific tactics that you were doing for recovery, whether it was supplements, protein, foam rolling, massage, mobility? What did the recovery look like for you? Or just lying on the couch watching Netflix?
A little bit of everything, pretty much. Yeah, but you try to do as much as you can. To be honest, my body, let's say my muscles and my joints and all that, they were recovering pretty fast. The problem was my insides, like my gut, for example, my stomach would take weeks to go back to normal because remember we're eating all these processed foods during the race, gels and why not, and also the dehydrated meals for 6 days. And obviously the stress, your gut is the part that takes it all. And also I had my hormones were all over the place. I think that year. Now we're talking with women here. My periods were all over the place that year. There will be months with no period. There will be months with two. There will be months where it was just. And I am very regular, but that's when I realized, oh, it's not only my muscles. It's definitely there's something happening inside. Like more into hormonal system wise inside. And it was after Namibia, I think it was after Namibia, I realized I also had a little bit of spikes of cortisol happening, which is something that I've been now telling people, and I'm like trying to educate women, and more so in endurance sports, because we tend to have these spikes of cortisol, and more so because we live in this stress, in this flight or flight mode for many hours, even in training and then during a race. And women, we tend to have that more than men. And because of that, I developed a cortisol hump in my back, which grew massively this year. I've been trying to research on how can we avoid it, because obviously women that I'm now telling them my story, even in Instagram and all that, and they're like, how do I avoid it? How do I really don't have a clue. Maybe don't run 5 deserts in a year. Don't put your body into like such extreme stress. Probably that would be, because to be honest, I don't know if it was healthy what I did to my body, but I was already in, and I had the goal and it had to be done. But yeah, I think I sacrificed my body during this challenge.
Were you sleeping during that time? Were you managing to sleep well?
You don't sleep well. I mean, you're tired. You are hooked. So when you arrive to camp, it's not like you arrive to camp and then just chill. You have to make your food. You have to cook your food. You need to take care of your blisters, of you have to dry your clothes, because you are only living with one pair of clothes. So I used to have just one that I could ditch and just kind of change, dry them, because they will be soaking wet. There's a lot of things that you have to do in the evening after you finish. So you're not relaxing right away. And then have you tried to sleep after a race? It's difficult. You have this rush of adrenaline. Having to sleep in a tent with 6 other people. It's always difficult. You're always listening, or even though I had earphones, and you still hear everything. It's not the most comfiest to sleep in the floor, even though I had a mat. And you're still hooked, you still you have that energy and adrenaline from the race day, and then thinking like, oh gosh, I have tomorrow. The day before the long stage is probably the worst, because you're like super broken already, you're sleeping and you're sore already, and you're like, oh my god, I have to run 80 kilometers tomorrow. How is that going to happen? So obviously you're not sleeping because you're worried, you're stressed, you have this adrenaline, and you can hear everything, you're a little bit hungry. So yeah, you don't sleep great either. So that probably definitely adds into the stress levels that led to having the cortisol spikes as well.
Yeah. Have you still got the hump? Is the cortisol hump, or has that gone down now?
Well, funny enough, I went to doctors to see if it can be removed, because it's now a fatty lump. And they try to first take it out with like a liposuction method, which I think it would have been probably done when I realized that was growing or that was there. probably I could have done that. But then, like I said, I kind of ignored it for a year because I was like, I can't do anything right now. I am in the middle of this thing. I cannot be, stopped right now. And so because of that, it just developed into this lipoma that it got really hardened and that got even fibrosis on it. So actually, now that you mention it, a week ago I went into surgery to remove it. So now I am recovering from that surgery. It was, yeah, indeed a fatty lump created because of cortisol spikes. It's pretty common. Not common, but it's just done because of that. And it was 7 centimeters by 1.5 deep. So it was it's like a hamburger patty in my back.
Whereabouts on your back?
So it's between the neck and the back. Yeah. So if you have a hump there, if you're an endurance woman that does a lot of crazy stuff, yes, just try to keep an eye on that and on your back and that hump between your neck and your shoulders kind of thing in that area. And just try also to recover well between races or between, and not only way that your muscles feel good, but your whole hormone and your whole levels kind of go back to normal. And they usually take a little bit longer than your muscles. So even when you stop being sore from your race, just give yourself an extra week.
This is fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that, because honestly, I've probably interviewed over like 750 women and I've never heard of that before.
I know. I always say that. I'm like, I've never heard of this before. And then people are like, well, there's only 9 women in the world that have done what you did. So there's not a lot of like studies about this. So yeah, I don't know. I'm probably, it doesn't help that obviously I am maybe a little bit anxious. I'm, maybe my personality is, I'm anxious. I'm controlling a little bit. I like to be on top of things. I have now in this period, we moved to Dubai, and obviously that stress of moving was obviously adding on into the whole, maybe it's not only the sport, but also your life. And obviously that just made a mix of, of a really crazy mix. So yeah, maybe it's not only for sports, but also try to live, if you're into this, try to maintain your levels at home as well, just as calm as possible.
Yeah. I think what was amazing is actually throughout this whole process, you actually shared your journey on your podcast, Ultra Happy Podcast. Would you like to share more about what it was like starting the podcast, what the format is, what people can expect from listening to those episodes?
Of course. I started the podcast before when I started getting ready for the first desert. So I would take you along to the whole journey of how to get ready, how I learned. I mean, everyone's learning is with me in that, back in the day, I was recording the episodes as much as I was learning from the sport, as much as I was learning from myself as well, how I was dealing, like you were saying, with the overwhelming of the things, and just kind of everything that went through my life as well. Like I said, it's a whole, even when I coach as a holistic approach, because it's not only your numbers and your distance, it's like what's happening behind it, what's happening at home, so it's about, the podcast is about that. My co-host is Andy, my husband, and which he started in the podcast saying that he will never run. He's not a runner. He's not interested. And it was just, I thought, what, it's going to be super fun to have you, because it will be fun to have the other perspective of someone that is maybe not a runner. And, I'm telling you my things, my stories, and you will keep it grounded, because sometimes I feel I forget sometimes that my life may not be as normal as I think it is. So having him on board is quite fun. But funny enough, I had, obviously all the chats, he was present. And then I had a couple of interviews with super inspirational women that I've met through the deserts, a cancer survivor, a stroke survivor, and they were going to do these races, and some of them were winning them. And there was another lady that has never run even a half marathon before, and she went on and take on these two of them, two deserts, and he was listening there in the background, of course. And then he started maybe running a little bit and feeling inspired and motivated to kind of be part of it and feel that. And now he is running. He actually paced me a fair bit in Cocodona. So, it's a journey, my journey, but you also will see how you can turn into, get a little bit of inspiration. I say if I was able to inspire the most stubborn man on earth, I'm pretty sure you'll get inspired as well.
It's done in seasons, isn't it? So 5 seasons for each of the 5 deserts.
Yes, correct. I'm missing Atacama because I haven't been back home from the last desert, from this Atacama trip. I'm still in Mexico. But once I return, we'll take on the last one, Atacama, sharing all the details. That one was a super emotional journey because I knew it was the last desert and it was the last one. I was so emotional the whole race. I don't know, it just meant so much to me that I was finishing that challenge and all the challenges that went through, not only during the races, but personally. Like I said, we moved, we lost our pet on that journey, and all the things that you live in a year, it's a lot. So I think that's why I think it was so emotional, Atacama for me. So I will be sharing that, how I lived that one, what I learned, of course, as always. And also we'll do another one of Cocodona, which that one also was 4 weeks after the last one. We embarked on Cocodona 250. So that one's always also going to be part of the podcast soon.
I absolutely love this because not only documenting it for other people, but it's documenting the whole journey, because you'll look back and listen to maybe the first episode where you're sharing about the challenge and you're talking about the overwhelm. And then now, you're on the other side of it and you can see how much you've grown as a person, like the lessons that you've learned along the way. But then it's so powerful to be able to share that with other people listening, to be like, oh, it's
Yeah,
okay. It's normal to feel scared. It's normal to feel overwhelmed. Okay. Yeah. Actually,
absolutely.
yeah, I'm not sleeping too well, or actually I'm not handling my stress well. And actually I am dealing with these cortisol spikes and this is what's happening to my body. So I think that's so, so powerful. Honestly, massive congratulations. And Tania, you are obviously, you are on social media. Where can people connect with you? How can they find out more about you and your amazing races and challenges? Where should they go?
Thank you so much. Yes, and I'm in social media like Tania runs underscore the world. Also, there's a link to my website. I have a YouTube channel with the podcast, obviously, if you would like to watch it. But if not, if you just like to listen to it, it's also in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also in my YouTube channel, it's the mini films of each desert, which I think you all will love because, if you listen to the podcast, you kind of listen to all the build up, what I'm getting ready. We are getting ready together because I've never been there. I've never done it before, and then we finish with me showing you the video of like, hey, this is what we did, like this is, what happened. Like we've been getting ready together and this is the pinnacle, like we did it. And I always feel like we did it together because, the audience is always part of the whole journey. And I love that they are there with me. I really, really feel them with me. And so in the YouTube channel, you will see the mini films of each one where you can see the beautiful scenery. I talk about how I was feeling like right there in that moment and the struggles. And, you'll see me in action there as well. So it's really cool also to share that part.
Thank you so much for sharing your passion and for seeking out these new challenges, and especially like in the world of ultra marathons. And I'd love for you to leave us with your final words, with 5 final words of wisdom for other women out there who are thinking, do you know what? Yeah, I need to step outside my comfort zone. I need to follow my passions, whatever they may be, so that they can thrive and, step outside their comfort zone and push, past their limits. And apart from just do it, what would your final words of advice be?
I think my final advice would be live your life with curiosity, because once you start living life with curiosity, life becomes an amazing adventure. So don't do it for, for the likes or for the, it has to come from a place of curiosity. like, what else can I do? Would this be possible? And then answering those questions along the way, it's absolutely incredible.
And you are absolutely incredible. Tania, massive congratulations on becoming the first Mexican woman to conquer the 5 toughest deserts. Absolutely inspiring on the 5 Deserts Grand Slam. It's been incredible to speak to you, and just best of luck with all your future challenges and adventures.
Thank you so much. And yeah, and I'm here if anyone needs any help, I'm an open book. I'm always up for supporting women in the sport.
Hey, tribe. How are you all doing? I really hope you enjoyed the episode with Tania. What an absolute inspiration. And I love the fact that she has documented and shared her journey through a podcast. So please do go and give it a listen. Everything that we have talked about today will be available in the show notes at toughgirlchallenges.com. So please do go and check it out. If you are particularly interested in running and running is your jam, then there are 2 resources pages that might be of interest. We have one, runners up to a marathon distance, so up to 26.2 miles. And then we also have a dedicated page linked into Ultrarunners. So if you're interested in running ultras, then I have spoken to hundreds of incredible women who have shared their personal story, how they got started in running, what they've learned from it, as well as speaking to different experts. So for example, Rennie McGregor, she's a world-renowned expert in athlete health and performance. She's an ultra runner herself, and she's also a women's sports advocate. Charlotte Bowens, who went from a health crisis to a 50-mile ultramarathon finisher. She's also creating Vesta packs for the plus size community. Jen Scotney has been on the podcast twice. So in the Tough Girl Podcast Extra, she shares more about her new book, Running Through the Dark, The Rise and Fall of an Ultra Runner, which is a story about resilience, about never giving up, and about battling through the night and always believing that there will be a new dawn. So with the Tough Girl Podcast has been going for 10 years. And you might be thinking, oh, Sarah, but the episodes from like 2015, 2016, 2017, are they still relevant? Yes, they are. 100%. The content is evergreen. You can still learn from these women sharing their stories. So please feel free to go back to the very beginning of when we started speaking to incredible women such as Stephanie Case, a UN human rights lawyer in Afghanistan, an ultra runner. She's done Western States 100. We've also spoken to Nikki Spinks, who was the first person ever to run a double Ramsey round in the Scottish mountains, 116 miles, 57,000 feet of ascent, 48 peaks, 55 hours and 56 minutes on her feet. We've spoken to Laura Maisie, who in September 2016, she ran from Rome to London, a journey of 1,249 miles. So all of their stories are still 100% relevant. You can still learn from these women. And what I suggest that you do is you listen and you pick and choose the bits that would work for you, that you think, actually, I'm going to try that out. That was really interesting when she talked about nutrition, or that was really interesting when she talked about mental resilience, or that was really interesting when she delved into her training plan. Maybe I can make that work for me and my lifestyle. Another key thing to remember is there is no comparisons. Do not compare yourself to other women. You compare yourself to you. So it doesn't matter if you're training for a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, an ultra marathon, running 24 hours, or going to break a record. What's important is that this challenge is challenging to you, that it's going to help you grow and develop as a person. That is what we're all about. I want you listening to these episodes of the Tough Girl Podcast for them to motivate and to inspire you to take on new challenges that excite you, that take you outside of your comfort zone. So thank you so much for listening to Tough Girl Podcast. Episodes go live every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time, with bonus episodes going live on a Thursday. I am currently out at this moment in time. I am out on the GR10 in France. So running. I'm not running, sorry. It's because I'm talking about running all the time. Hiking. I am hiking from the North Atlantic Ocean, or the Atlantic Ocean, all the way through the Pyrenees to the Mediterranean. So I will be sharing this journey on my social media. Come and follow along on Instagram at Tough Girl Challenges. I will be vlogging it as well. And I'll also be filming for a film, which I hope to enter into a couple of film competitions as well. So yeah, there's lots going on. And the reason that there is lots going on is because I am so passionate about increasing the amount of female role models in media. And if you also want to pay it forward, if you have received value from listening to the Tough Girl podcast, you can pay it forward by signing up as a patron, visiting Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast. There's a monthly option, there is an annual option, or if you just want to make a one-off donation, be like, do you know what, Sarah, I've been listening for you 10 years. I feel it's time for me to contribute and to pay it forward. You can also donate via PayPal. You just visit the website, scroll to the bottom, boom, there is a link for you. Thank you so much to all the incredible patrons and supporters. It really does make a massive difference. If you're not in a place to financially support at the moment, I totally understand that, but I would love for you to share the Tough Girl podcast on social media, tag me in it at Tough Girl Challenges, and then I can reshare as well. That would be wonderful. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.